3 states suing President Obama over his recent executive action on immigration, saying, as Senator Sessions did, that he is clearly violating the Constitution. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott, who becomes governor of that state in January, filed the lawsuit in partnership with, now it's up to 19 additional states. Wisconsin is on that list. And Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker joins us now live from Madison. Governor, good to see you today.
Great to be with you.
Thanks for having us. Tell us why you decided to sign on. What are your concerns for you as a state?
Well, this is one where the president has clearly overstepped his bounds. And as a chief executive, just like my fellow governors elsewhere across the country, we understand that when we have to work with our legislative bodies, that we don't make the laws. We have to work with the legislative branch to make the laws. And as a chief executive in the state level as governor, you can sign something into law, you can veto it. In our case, you can partially veto it, or you can let it stand. But you cannot make the law. This is not something that we're just saying. The president himself, for years now, for years up until just a few weeks ago, was saying that he wasn't the emperor of the United States, he was the president of the United States, that there was no legal standing. And yet, in a bit of frustration after the election, he went forward with something he himself said he couldn't do. And we think the American people need to hold him in check. And that's exactly what we're doing in this lawsuit.
What kind of impact does it have on you as a state when there are directives at the federal level that are, some would argue, unfunded? I mean, what does that do to your state budget, which has been the source of a lot of public attention and contention over the last several years?
Well, as you look at actions like this and what the ripple effect may be, much of which is not fully understood yet today, even as we speak, but we suddenly allow new groups of people to come in. The states, probably as much as anyone, have to deal with Medicaid costs, they have to deal with school costs, they have to deal with other social services. There are all sorts of things that become unfunded mandates when actions are taken, which is, again, precisely why this should be done, and not just on this issue, but on other issues, through the normal legislative process, so that members of Congress in the House and the Senate from both parties can hear from the states, can hear from advocates, opponents, and proponents and opponents of measures like this and hear about it. It's why you do not allow any one person, a man or a woman, as the chief executive of our nation's federal government, take action like this without the checks and balance of the Congress and the legislative branch.
What do you hope to accomplish? I mean, what do you think the end result will be? The administration has talked about the fact that it has prosecutorial discretion in many of these cases, but you know, critics are pointing to other things that are more proactive, things like permitting work visas, giving or work permits, giving Social Security numbers, those kinds of things. What do you think you'll tangibly be able to accomplish through this suit?
Well, there's a couple different things. In the suit itself, I think this is one of those where it transcends the issue, specifically the policy issue. This is really about making sure that we're a nation of laws and that we follow those laws. And that, I mean, one of the ironies is the president said that for years, and then many of his supporters in the weeks following the election leading up to this executive action said, well, Republicans in the Congress have had enough time, we're tired of waiting. Well, you don't get to just say you're tired and violate the Constitution, the laws of the land, no matter where you stand on these particular issues. I think it's just a principled argument that we want the courts to uphold that distinction, that balance of power, that you should see it in any level of government, the federal, the state, or the local level. And so we want the courts to act in that regard. In terms of immigration overall, I don't think anyone in Washington, be it the president, a member of the House or the Senate, should be talking at any degree about any sort of scenarios of what to do with this until this nation has secured its borders. It's mind-boggling to me that we spend tens of millions of dollars making sure our airports, and particularly those airports that bring in people from overseas across the world, obviously have customs and all sorts of requirements there. We have TSA to make sure that our airplanes are safe for people getting on and off. We have security, money we put into our water ports around the coast, both on the east and the west coast, southern coast, but even in the Great Lakes. And yet we don't do much of anything to effectively guard our border there. To me, that's a national security issue. You talk about ISIS and other groups out there who hate the United States and our way of life. To me, that's a real security threat. We need to address that before we talk about anything else.
Something else I'd like to talk about with you, Governor, 2016. What kind of calculation or criteria would be on the table for you in considering a potential run?
Well, I mean, for me, I've said this before, I think anyone, the closer one gets towards thinking about running for president, the more you realize it's crazy to just want to be president. Having said that, I think that the distinction is you have to feel you have a calling. Years ago, I certainly felt I had a calling to be governor, which is why when I took office, I wasn't so much worried about the next election as I was worried about the next generation of getting things done. And I'm proud to say today, for my sons and all the others in their generation, they're growing up in a Wisconsin that's better than the one I grew up in. And that would be part of the same consideration. Is I see a great country, but I see a country that's failing to live up to its potential. I see folks in Washington, many of whom are in both parties, standing in the way out there. And I think for us to move our country forward so that my children and all the other sons and daughters like them across America can live in a better country than the one we grew up in, we need people from outside of Washington to come in and take the power away from the Washington-based special interest and put it firmly in the hands of the taxpayers and the hardworking people of our states and of our country. That's what we've done in Wisconsin. I'd have to feel I could make that kind of impact nationally to get in the race there as well.
Well, that sounds like a good start to a stump speech, if you decide to. Of course, keep us updated. Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, always good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great Christmas.